we'll kind of jump into this. They say you should never start a session with an apology, so I'm not going to apologise for this. I'm Simon Brodie. The original intent here was to hopefully get a more academic approach to this, but we couldn't arrange the academics for this. So it's going to be a more sort of peer-led kind of discussion rather than people talking about academic research and stuff. This is working. It's a little bit big. Can you see all that at the back, even though it's going over the board? Excellent. So, like I say, it's going to be a peer-led session. So, it's going to be more of a discussion area. Some stuff I'll talk about, and some stuff I'll be trying to get some feedback from you. While it is an interactive session, please don't feel any pressure to take part. If you want to, that'd be fantastic. If you don't worry about it. For those who are taking part, again, please give them a bit of peace and quiet and a bit of time to get their points out. Some people might just take a little bit of time to get their head around things, so just give people an opportunity to do that. A little bit of a Doctor Who quote, because why not? Because I thought there might be some nerds in here, who knows? And again, because of the kind of stuff that we're potentially going to talk about, it might be a little bit difficult for people. So if you come out here and you're feeling a little bit, do a bit of self-care, go outside, spend some time in the grass, get yourself something to eat, just look after yourself. All good? Yep. Excellent. I'm not going to be sitting in front of the microphones because I have a loud enough voice anyway, but if you can't hear me at the back, just let me know.
Do you happen to have a sheet with the PowerPoint?
There is a sign-up sheet going around somewhere. It's round there. If you get your details on it, I'll email you the PowerPoint. But again, there's not going to be a lot on them because the plan is to talk around them. So, a little bit about me. I did 28 years in the military. I've been gaming since 1979, I think it was. So, a couple of hours, mainly on the DM. Oh, 78 there, see, lied. I did myself out of a year. Left the military, became a therapist, then I'm now a full-time carer and stuff. But I would say, in fact, let's have a show of hands. Who here has found some benefit to their well-being from gaming? So, a couple of you. Excellent. That's good. Then the outcome of this should be fairly positive. I volunteer with a couple of charities. I volunteer with Game Therapy UK. I don't know if you've heard about them, but they are starting to look at the academic evidence behind the benefits of tabletop role-playing. Now, my background is role-playing rather than board gaming, so if there are board gamers in here, I apologise. Most of this is role-playing focused, but to be fair, it's a pretty much 99, 100% overlap, so it's gaming in general. So, Game Therapy UK have got a number of projects around the country. They've got a neurodivergent project, they've got an autism project, because the autism's coming first, then they're developing neurodivergent. They've got a schools, libraries and clubs group, they've got a veterans group, they've got a homeless group, they're doing LGBT youth group they're setting up. So basically they're setting up therapeutic gaming groups for a number of, for want of a better phrase, marginalised stroke challenged communities to look at the benefits of role-playing on people's well-being and mental health, so that we've actually got some academic evidence. There's lots of anecdotal evidence, because we all put our hands up there, but none of us are taking part in research. It's just the fact that we know we feel better afterwards. Loads of anecdotal evidence out there, very little academic evidence. And the academic evidence that we've got is fairly limited at the moment. So it could be we played one encounter with two groups of 12 people and compared them against 12 people that hadn't. So it's really limited in scope and depth, but we're actually now trying to get a lot more academic rigor behind it, and we'll talk about that in a second as to why. And I also run a game for Models for Heroes, which is exactly what it sounds. It's Airfix type modelling, online and in sort of face-to-face activities for struggling veterans. So even though it's model-based, I saw in one session the chairman had a Dungeon Master's Guide on the shelf behind him, and I said, "Do you play?" And he went, "Yeah." "Do you want to set up a Models for Heroes role-playing session?" He went, "Yeah." So that's been going 3 years in July, and I think, we can't find any evidence, but we think it's the longest running therapeutic game for veterans that's been going in the UK. So there we go. And just a little bit about me. Surprisingly enough, I'm a gamer. I'm a little bit neurodiverse, a little bit ADHD, and I've had suicidal depression. The only reason I put that at the end is because if we're talking about stuff later on, and people want to talk about the challenges they've faced, it's only fair that I kind of front up and go, hey, this is where I've been. So I can empathise with some of you, but obviously your situation is yours. So, what are we going to talk about? I wanted to start off with a little bit of the science behind it, because we all know when we feel like crap, but quite often we don't realise why our brain is doing what it's doing. And sometimes just understanding why you feel like that can actually give you a little bit more control and feeling that I'm not out of control because I realise what my body's doing. So we're going to have a little bit about what your brain does, a very brief summary of the survey, and then I've got quite a few comments there. You might have seen me on some social media sites asking people for their feedback. So quotes from actual gamers about how gaming has impacted them. And the plan is we'll throw them up there, sit with them for a few seconds, have a think about it, and then people who've got anything to add or it resonates with, would love to hear your points. I should look myself a water before we started. Right, so why your brain does what it does when it's feeling a little bit unhappy. Have a read about that. Now, this is the general feeling of anxiety as opposed to an anxiety disorder, which some people might have, but it's still the same mechanic. Your body feels unsafe. It does some stuff to try and feel a little bit more safe. The difference is, and we'll look about this in a second, your body doesn't know the difference between somebody's about to stab you and Friday afternoon and somebody's giving you a whole load of work you weren't expecting. Your brain doesn't know the difference. And it has exactly the same reaction, exactly the same panic to somebody giving you extra work you weren't expecting as it does to you about to be getting mugged. And it's a natural response. So, you are a Neanderthal, you're out and about foraging for stuff for the tribe. There's a couple of seats down the front if you want, or fit yourself in wherever. There's also a board going around with names for copies of the slides. Yeah, jump in, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. So, you turn around the corner, you've got the saber-toothed tiger. It is an existential threat. It is going to kill you and eat you. Your body goes, well, I'm not happy with this, don't really want to die. It puts you into, people heard of the fight or flight response? People also don't talk about there's a flee and a freeze element to it, and there's some really interesting research at the moment for anybody who's been through depression that suggests depression possibly might not be an actual illness like we thought. It's a set of responses to your body going into the flee or freeze thing, so you flee to your bed for 6 months. You flee away from all that stress. So I'm not suggesting that that's the right way of looking at it, but I was just reading some research on it, which I thought that was really interesting. So anyway, body goes into fight or flight, floods your body with hormones to do stuff. So when you encounter a scary situation where you're feeling lots of stress and pressure, what do you notice happening in your body?
Heart rate.
Sorry?
Your heart rate.
Heart rate goes up. Just the what, not the why.
You get shakes.
You get shakes.
Breathing.
Sorry?
You're breathing.
Breathing is a good thing. What about it?
You feel like panic.
Okay, yeah. Breathing gets more rapid. Sorry?
Your breathing just increases
Yeah.
by default.
What else?
Start sweating.
Sorry?
You start sweating.
You start sweating, absolutely.
Not chilling.
Oh, well, yeah. Chilling tends to be because you're sweating and it cools you. But yeah, okay, yeah.
Fidgeting.
Fidgeting.
I get dumber.
Yes, absolutely. Your brain sometimes just loses all focus on other stuff. People heard of having a nervous wee before a presentation? Or a nervous poo for some people? That's another one. Butterflies in your stomach? People talk about that. So, excellent. We've got kind of covered all that. Breathing goes up, you tense up, perspire, yeah. Upset stomach, dry mouth, feeling sick, and then if it goes on for long enough, reduction in sex. Okay, but that's really interesting. So this is the response our body has to danger. But starting off at the top left, why, when we are about to fight a saber-toothed tiger or run away from it, would we want our pulse increasing and our respiration rate increasing?
Increased blood flow.
Sorry?
Increased blood flow.
Increased blood flow. Why do we want increased blood flow?
Because there's no cramp.
Sorry?
So we don't cramp.
So we don't cramp up.
Oxygen to the muscles.
Oxygen to the muscle. We're about to fight something or run away. So actually, the body is going, well, you're going to fight something or you're going to run away. I'm going to give you energy to do that. What about being tense and stressed? How many people feel that? I get it in my neck. It just goes rock solid for 90% of my life. Why do we do that? Okay, muscles getting ready to do something, to either fight or run away. People talked about perspiring or cooling down. Why is that? It's exactly what you're saying. We perspire so that we cool down. Because all our blood has rushed to our muscles to fight or run away, and we're going to overheat. So the body is trying to cool you down. Being hypervigilant or having tunnel vision. Yeah. We've got a saber-toothed tiger in front of us. You don't really care what's going on over there or what you can smell. That is the thing that's going to kill you. So we focus on what we... So in real life, you can have a think about why you might get focused on the stuff that's stressing you out and not the other stuff. And actually, it's the other stuff that's going to calm you down. It's thinking about the bigger picture. It's being mindful. All these other things that are going to calm you down, your brain's like, no, ignore that stuff that's going to help because I think you're about to die. I'm going to focus you on what you think is going to be causing you a threat, even though it's not a real threat to your safety. Just come in, sit yourself down. Nice beard, sir. Thank you. Get yourself settled. There's absolutely no rush. Okay, next one. Nervous wee, nervous poo.
Listen, reduces your weight so you can put that.
Exactly. You laugh, but a pound lighter is a pound faster. If I'm lighter than, and so there's that element, but also the other element of is what happens to you after you eat a big meal?
You slow down.
Yeah. You slow down because all the blood is rushing to your stomach to process that food. You don't need that. You do not want to have blood processing food when you're about to fight for your life. So it's get rid of it. That's exactly why people also have butterflies in their stomach and they feel sick. It's because if you throw that up, you're not processing it, and that blood and oxygen can do something to save your life. How about having a dry mouth? I'll flip it the other way around. Why is having a moist mouth useful? Stop it.
It's food consumption.
To eat. Your body, when you have a dry mouth, is saying, listen, don't think about eating. We're about to die. We're about to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Food is not coming here. And that's exactly why it goes down to that idea of long-term anxiety, stress, mental health problems has a reduction in your sex drive. Because your brain is like, no, we're not doing the sex thing, we're doing the not dying thing. So your brain, when it goes through anxiety and stress, all of this stuff is to try and keep you safe. Because your brain doesn't understand the difference between a little bit of stress at work or a little bit of an argument at home and a saber-toothed tiger trying to kill you. And once you actually go, well, I can feel tense in my neck, or I can feel my mouth drying up, you can kind of recognize the symptoms potentially before they start causing you a problem. And if you can recognize them before they start causing you a problem, that's where you go, right, I'm taking 5 minutes, I'm taking a step back, I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, I'm going to have a walk around the block, I'm going to do something that feeds my soul before I get into this, sorry, my brain is so busy focused on staying alive that it won't let me do anything beneficial. Does that all make sense? Any thoughts or comments? No? Excellent. Or bad. Sorry? No? So, what is the science saying? Like I say, I'm not going to go into what research is out there. You can have a look online and see. But I've been through a load of recent stuff, and it's kind of all pointing at the same thing. There's lots of anecdotal evidence. Like I say, we know we feel better, but there's not much science proving it. There's lots more research happening now, but again, it tends to be very narrow. Interesting enough, from a veteran perspective, when the guys were coming back from Afghanistan, they used to do 3 days of decompression in Cyprus. So it would basically take them for you are fighting for your life every day, 3 days to just, and they would take them to, there are a couple of beers on the beach, they'd have a barbecue, they'd go and do some sports, before they took them back to the UK and go, hey, congratulations, crack on with your life. What do you think the first game was everybody wanted to play when they got back to Cyprus? Call of Duty. I've just been out there shooting people, and actually, I want to play Call of Duty to calm down, which I thought was very interesting. And it does appear from a scientific perspective, like it says there, gaming is good for your emotional well-being. Who thinks that? Yeah? Personal development? And a bit of social connectivity? So, yeah, we've already told them, we already know this, but the scientists haven't picked up on it because nobody's actually sat down and done any work. So, emotional well, have a look and see. It's an opportunity to just go and do something different. Put your work down, play a game, relax a bit, de-stress, recharge your batteries. It's a safe space, and again, that goes back to almost that Call of Duty thing. And some of the other research from dealing with veterans with PTSD is actually, the research suggests that if you put them in a game environment that is providing a low level of threat that triggers their PTSD, that's actually really beneficial because they get used to an environment where something feels dangerous, but they can still look around and go, I'm at a table with my mates. So actually, even though I'm feeling anxiety, and I'm feeling my pulse rate going up, I'm feeling my tunnel visioning, I'm feeling like, I need to go to the bathroom, I can actually look around and go, yeah, but I'm actually safe. My body is having a negative reaction to what it perceives, but my brain can look around and go, actually, that's not the situation you're in. That's why, so for those that either deal with PTSD or complex PTSD, your brain will have a memory of something traumatic. And because of the fact that you've been in this heightened arousal state for days, weeks, months, years, it changes the way your brain operates. So, I'm trying to remember if I get this right, if there's any neuroscientists in there, please say, I think it's the hypothalamus, whatever it is in your brain that deals with time, you have a memory of a traumatic incident. Your brain looks at it and goes, is that a memory or is that a real thing? And this is when the hypothalamus isn't working properly. And it goes, you know what, I can't tell if this is something happening now or something that happened months ago. So to be on the safe side, what's it going to do? We'll assume it's happening now. And that's why people with PTSD have flashbacks. It's their brain trying to keep them safe by going, listen, I don't know if you're really being blown up or if that was a loud noise, but to be on the safe side, I'll assume it's not a memory, I'll assume it's actually happening now, and that's why they react to traumatic things, because the brain believes it's happening now. Again, your brain is just trying to keep you safe. It's screwing you around and making your life horrible, but it's trying to keep you safe. So anyway, yeah, safe space to explore challenging environments. We all love the fact that we can tell stories with our games. And from what we're saying, we know it reduces our stress levels, our anxiety. It has a positive impact on depression. And scientists are starting to identify this. Problem-solving skills? Absolutely. Anybody here worked with, well, I would say youth, but either neurodivergent people or neurodivergent youth? Have you seen a change from them in the way they engage from role-playing games?
I have a perfect example for you.
Please go for it.
Now, as I've already said, I'm a school librarian, and when I started at the school, I started a D&D club, although we do Pathfinder other things as well. That's not important.
Good. D&D is not the only game.
Exactly. But
Thank you.
I had one kid that started as a first year, just as I started, and she came along to the D&D club. Now, this kid wouldn't go into classes, she was terrified, wouldn't speak to her soul, but she came to the D&D club, and within a couple of weeks, I made it that she would sit with anyone. She sat at a table with 6th year, 4th year, 3rd year, and her playing the game. A couple of weeks, she was running up to all the teachers, telling them about her session, telling them how great it was, how much she enjoyed stuff. She was going into all her classes. It really boosted her confidence, and I felt like I'd hit the top of Everest because of the boost that she gave me from her.
And from an educational perspective, giving a child 1 or 2 hours of gaming a week to have that impact, how many hours of special needs coordination time do you think they need to get the same? Or teachers' time to get the same? From a purely financial, it's a really cost-effective way of being able to get struggling special needs children into an environment where they're more able to engage with their peers, do better with academics, and also access the curriculum at an appropriate level from a couple of hours of D&D, which costs a couple of hours of someone's pay. So yeah, from that perspective, it's phenomenally powerful. And we'll look at this one, why the research is really important, as well as the fact that we have the anecdotal evidence. Encourages participation in activity, builds confidence, and it builds people's resilience and adaptability, because again, we can look at challenging things in game and give people the skill sets to have a play with in real life. From a connectivity perspective, empathy and understanding, the autistic theory of mind that some of you might have come across. So, and yes, I appreciate I'm generalising, but if you have 3 cups and under one you put a sweet, and you turn around to somebody autistic and say, if I bring Bob in, which cup are they going to point to as having the sweet? Quite often, neurodivergent people will go, well, it's that one there, because I saw you put it there. They can't pick up the fact that other people have a different level of understanding to the situation as they do. And again, I appreciate I'm very generalising here. Role-playing allows neurodivergent people to get into other people's headspaces. What do you think your character would do? Is that really what your character would do, or is that what you do? Oh, actually, no, that's what I do. What do I think? Well, I think my character would do something else. Why would they do that? Well, I think that they think that person might be a bad guy. Brilliant. It gets people to start thinking about how other people think and feel. That develops empathy and connectivity. A sense of community as well. Yeah, if you feel different, again, anybody ever felt different? Yeah. What's it like sitting down with a bunch of people that feel just as different as you? And you realise that actually you're different to some people, but you're very similar to lots of other people. So it gives that community. It allows people to make social mistakes. It's a game. Well, I don't know how to... And again, I've encountered loads of people who struggle to engage in a real life situation, but love playing the bard in a role-playing game because they can go and practice their skills in a safe environment. Yeah, listening to other people, taking turns, again, really useful life skills that gaming can identify. People can, express challenging ideas, things that they might not be comfortable dealing with in real life. They can do that in game. And people can form friendships. So, we talked about why the research is needed. First of all, it gets rid of that stigma, you're not just playing silly games with your friends. And anecdotally, there is no evidence to say that I'm not playing silly games with my friends. But when you've got scientific research, you can go, well, actually, I am playing games with my friends, but it's not silly, and here are all the things that science says it's doing. So it gives the hobby a bit more credibility. Once you have credibility, you can then go out to people and go, I need money. I'm trying to run a D&D group at my school, my library, whatever, can I have some money? I'm not paying you money to go and play games with your friends. Aha! Not games with my friends. Here's all the scientific research that says why. If you turn around to every school and go, listen, if you give every child who's on the special needs register 2 hours of gaming a week, here are all the benefits we will see. I guarantee you schools would fund it. They would find the money in the budget because the research has been done to show the benefits, which you can't do anecdotally. So, gives you access to funding. It then gives you more evidence to go to schools and libraries and set up clubs because of the wider benefits. It's also starting to be adopted in the therapeutic space. There are a number of therapists who are using role-playing, whether it's the full game or just concepts, in their therapy. I don't think any of these windows open, do they? And I don't even think that opens to get me through here. It's just a cupboard. Oh no. Oh, there's a bit of cool air coming in there. Social prescribing as well. Anybody heard of that? What's social prescribing then? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. It's if you go to say NHS or your local practice with some mental health needs, they can prescribe you doing something socially to alleviate that. So one I got was kind of volunteering. So go volunteer in your local green space.
Yeah. Any members of Men's Sheds here? Just okay. A couple of Men's Shed members. Excellent. Men's Sheds, which is pretty much a youth club for blokes. Because blokes have a ridiculously high level of suicide. Men's Sheds was set up in Australia to kind of combat that, to give men something to do. And it tends to be groups of guys getting together and doing projects to support the local community. So it gives them a sense of worth, sense of value, and that connectivity that we've all talked about before. They've identified that every £1 spent in a men's shed saves the NHS £7. Because guys are more active, their headspace is better, so they don't need as much medication. They are moving around a bit more, so they don't need as much physio. And it's the knock-on effect of guys just going to a men's shed on the NHS is great. And NHS are prescribing, like you're saying, they're saying, get yourself down to the men's shed, because that would be really good for your headspace and your physical health. So social prescribing for games will come that way. Get yourself down to the games club, take part, because it's going to be really good for you. These are a whole load of things that I got feedback from some of my players, a whole load of players online. So what I want to do is just throw them up there, have a little think about them, and then if people have got anything to add, anything they feel from that, let's hear. It gives me somewhere to forget the real world, if only for a few hours. I don't have to worry and stress about life. I can just be the completely different character and create whatever story I want for them. Sorry, characters. Character. Not that I'm standing in the cool doorway. What are we thinking? Any thoughts? Sorry? Thought I heard something, but... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest reasons for me for liking like playing tabletop games.
Yep.
It's just to forget about like everything
Yeah.
in the world and
Yes, if you didn't hear that at the back, it's about, this is why I play tabletop games. It's to escape from the world, get a bit of time away from the things that stress me, and just be somebody different.
I think also, especially with a lot of younger people, but not specifically just that, but there's some people who are still figuring out, obviously, what their identity is as a person. So you mentioned earlier about being able to make social mistakes without consequences as such. It's a nice opportunity for them to sort of try out things where they're maybe questioning themselves a bit, so then they can sort of dip into these questions without it being themselves in a way. So they just do it for a character.
Absolutely, and there's a point on this later, but I'm going to kind of preempt it, it ties into what you're saying. How many people who are actively gaming in public spaces would say they have seen an explosion in non-binary players? I would absolutely say that, because people are exploring themselves and using gaming to explore what their identity might be. Ignoring everything else that gaming does, that's a phenomenally powerful tool. Being able to explore yourself in a game and find out who you are while you're having fun playing a game, that's mind-blowing. And that's just one of many things gaming does. Anything else on this?
Oh, also, it gives me the certificate, what's the word,
Satisfaction?
yes, yeah. Because like, for me, there's a lot of challenges and I struggle a lot, like, you know, and I always feel like, you know, I'm not being worthy or everything is failure. So by playing, not just tabletop games, but I mean not just RPGs, but general tabletop games.
But RPGs are better.
Yeah. It just gives me the satisfaction of like, I achieved something. Like, so,
Yeah. Again, for those that didn't hear out of the back, actually a sense of achievement, a sense of self-worth through the things that you can achieve in game. And I would say, if you're achieving those in game, you can also achieve them in the real world. Because one of the things that I want to talk at the end, but how many people have played games to escape? Keep your hands up if you've stayed in there too long. Just about everybody. So, while gaming is phenomenally powerful, it's also potentially really dangerous. When I was going through my suicidal depression, I was at Warcraft. Warcraft was my problem. I was finding myself coming home from work at lunchtime and then finding, I'm an hour late for work. Because I was just, and to me, the gaming was positive and beneficial, but anybody looking at me from the outside would have gone, no, that's really unhealthy. So again, there is that balance of making sure that when we are using gaming for our positive well-being, that we're doing it in a positive manner. Sorry,
I just want to say, because of World of Warcraft, I'm not playing it anymore, thank goodness, but I am self-employed, have been for 20 years, but at the time I wasn't even doing my work because I was just hiding from it, from all the stresses that came along with it, within this world, and I didn't really want to step out of it, so it took me, probably about 7-8 years to get out of it, but
you should come and play EVE Online, because that doesn't take out your whole life. any EVE Online players here?
No, I'm Frontier Development, elite.
No. Spreadsheets in space. Okay, so the next one. I started playing, and this is from one of my veteran personnel. I started playing D&D on Submarine Deterrent Patrol. So Deterrent Patrol, these are the nuclear bomber boats. You're disappearing off for 6 months. You are staying underwater, and if World War III kicks off, that's your only job. So a little bit of a stressful job, knowing the fact that if they have to do any real work, it's because the world's end. It was a fantastic way for us to be able to escape reality for a few hours every week, which became doubly important as the patrol was extended months past its original duration. Thoughts on that? Yeah, similar. It's about escapism. I would say that academically, there's an element there of going, are you suggesting that everybody in a really critical, high-powered job should get an hour or two of D&D a week? Open brackets, other games are available, close brackets. I say D&D, I hate myself for it. I've fallen into that trap of saying D&D instead of tabletop. Not there's anything wrong with D&D. Well, okay. Generally,
Nothing wrong with D&D, it's just wizards that are terrible.
Well, okay. D&D has some problems as well. But again, that idea of saying, well, actually, in a high-stress job, this is a really good way of getting back to your humanity in a couple of hours a week. Sorry.
A little interesting fact on that one, NASA actually gets their astronauts to play D&D as well. They've actually released materials on that. So they're probably on that sort of same level. Stressful environment job, let's play some D&D, build up teamwork. If you're up in space in a space station, you're getting that escapism. Pretty much what you're trying to push there.
I can't see that working though. Did you hit? I don't know, the dice is still spinning. 3 hours later, it's still going. But again, that idea that someone like NASA is going, this is really beneficial. And actually, it'd be interesting to see how much, for want of a better phrase, therapy hours an hour of D&D provides. because that would be a really powerful metric. Listen, you could go and see a therapist for 10 hours this week, and you can play 2 hours of D&D. Whoa. D&D's a little bit cheaper, crack on. And actually, does that then mean from an NHS perspective, instead of funding therapists, they fund GMs? And you go along for an hour or 2 hours of gaming once a week with other people, and you're just playing D&D for 2 hours a week. And that 2 hours of therapist time, instead of being for one person, you're now helping 6, 7, 8 people in that same time. Just a thought. Gaming has been the driving force in building my mental resilience and recuperation. The social aspect is always a tonic when all you want to do is disappear into a dark room. It's a good laugh and it helps build my confidence.
Yeah, because it's going back to like what was before about, you know, when you're, it was like more kind of like people coming out, like, so, you know, who they really are inside and that kind of thing. You know, like you get that and go to one piece, like big, massive kind of builder guys, or very kind of homophobic, but they play the game. It's something that they discover that the reason that they're so homophobic is because they were so far back in the closet. You know, but if they're in that position until they're comfortable to get to a point where it stops being a character, they still have that kind of disconnect where they can kind of go, that's not me.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
Until they're ready to say, well, that's me.
I think one of the worst things, and I'm hoping it's changing, I think it has, but I'm not entirely convinced. When I was at school, probably before some but not all of you were at school, you got to an age where, whether it was the school or your parents, it was like, that's not how you solve that problem. You go, but I've got the right answer. You're doing it wrong. Don't have fun. You're here to be serious. We're focusing on exams. We're focusing on doing things the right way. And we, for an extended, and I would say at least 30, 40 years, we kicked creativity out of kids. Because we wanted to create good little citizens. I worked with a company called Oxford Creativity doing something called TRIZ, which is it's engineering problem solving, but it teaches engineers and scientists to be creative. And it teaches them by pushing some of the boundaries. So one of the first things we did was you put a cup of water on the table and go, right, list all the ways that you can get that water out of there without touching it. And it's all scientifically feasible stuff. And then you go, what if you created a small black hole inside that was big enough to suck the water out but not to damage the cup? And they're like, oh, don't be stupid, you can't do that. Does it solve the problem? Oh, yeah, it does. Okay. Knowing that you can, if we could create the black hole it would do, what else can we think of to do that? And once you break that initial barrier of people feeling embarrassed about being creative in front of others, it comes flooding out. And I think D&D is brilliant for that. Because we come up with creative solutions to problems. And yes, of course, you get quite often people will go, oh yeah, but the rules don't let you do this and you can't do that. And that's kind of normal behavior. But I would say that when we are gaming, unless you are in a creative job, it's probably some of the most creative stuff we do. And it allows us to be creative, it allows us to do things that otherwise people would laugh at us outside, but we can do it because it's in a game. So yeah, developing our creativity is really important. In fact, anybody here played Goblin Quest? Oh, Goblin Quest. I would advise it. Anytime that half your table don't turn up, play Goblin Quest. You're basically playing, for want of a better phrase, a suicidal little goblin trying to achieve something, and you will die horrifically. So you come up with what you're doing. I'd like to do such and such. Roll some dice. Right, you've managed to achieve that, but you've also injured yourself. How did you do it? And it makes people think creatively. So some of the kids I've played it with, it'll be, oh, I want to hit the guy with my stick. Okay, da da da. You've managed to hit them, but you've also managed to kill yourself. How have you done that? And they've come up with creative solutions to it. And again, a lot of neurodivergent kids, some of them really struggling with their differences, 2 or 3 sessions of that, and the change in them is radical. because they appreciate that they can just blurt stuff out and nobody's going to judge them and they're going to have fun and everyone's going to have a laugh. So yeah, creativity is something that it's like when you see art always being de-emphasised in the school because actually it's English and maths and physics and science that's important. Actually, art has more of an important thing, I think, on us as humans than anything. And I hate art. But, sorry?
I have a question.
Yes, please, loud up, because I can't hear you.
With your work with the veterans,
Yep.
playing D&D, I'm curious, how did you make the effects permanent? Or somewhat permanent? But I mean, D&D can be a temporary patch and an upload and taking a break of things, right? And therapy should be a long-term solution to find the way to healing and whatnot. So how we could combine the two?
It's interesting because I would say some modalities of therapy are based on the fact that you see your therapist 3 times a week for the next 25 years. That to me is not finding a therapeutic solution. I would suggest that's a very almost American approach where it's an industry that lives alongside the stuff. But you also get modalities that will only do 4, 5, 6 sessions. Because sorry?
That's not really what I meant. What I meant with the long-term solutions, finding the solution in yourself, not going to the therapist for 5 years. But the things that you're saying, the neurodivergent people or whatever people are struggling with, is that you get a break from it and you learn something from it. But how do we make sure that this realization goes out of the gaming room and enters real life?
Yeah,
only do D&D.
Yeah, I think
basically is what it's teaching.
I think it's about teaching people skills that they can then apply to the rest of their life. So I know that I can change the way I communicate with people. I know that I can make friends. And actually, sitting down and making friends is that life-lasting change that people will potentially make. So yeah, there is no academic research at the moment on how long-lasting the changes are if you stop, but we don't want people to stop gaming. We want, but no, I absolutely get your point. How do we lock these changes into people? And I'm thinking a lot of it is it's about them going out and using the tools that they used in the game in their life, and then they become part of the new behaviour. Does that make sense?
Attacking your boss with a +2 battle like
Well, that is.
Only if it's that spring-loaded one.
Well, yeah.
I would suggest that depends if you get seen by anyone. From a D&D perspective, everybody dies and there's no witnesses. It's fine. Not that I'm suggesting you attack your boss.
Set up a fireball.
So, possibly an answer to that question. Interesting. I work in outdoors instructor stuff, and actually a big thing we do is reviewing. So actually after you've gone and done the scary bike ride or whatever, is actually just having that conversation going over. So I wonder if there's an element that actually after a session you actually have a conversation about the connection to real things.
Yeah, get feedback.
Embed that in.
Yeah. One of the things I do, certainly in my veteran games, is we will spend as long as they need at the start going, how are you doing, how was your week? And we've had ones where we've not had a gaming session because one of the guys is struggling, and we just chat for an hour and a half. And they're like, oh my God, I'm really sorry I ruined your session. You're like, you don't get the point, mate, this is the session. The session is us all coming along, having fun, and benefiting from it. So, up back.
Yeah, just when you said about taking things forward, sometimes
Bit louder, please, I'm deaf.
sometimes it really helps in strategic thinking as well. You know, it's like sometimes you can encounter a problem at work and you just have an absolute brick wall, and then you go into something, a gaming session, and you just see options available to you, and you think, this is something I've never thought of before, and we could try differently of thinking.
Unlocking that creativity. Thing is, how many people have ever been stuck at work with a closed door and not knowing how to get through it? But put people around the table and that completely changes.
Not just playing D&D, doesn't.
Well, yeah. Okay, exploring my character, this is the one I was talking about. Exploring my character's genders kind of gave me permission to explore my own, even if I didn't fully appreciate I was doing it at the time. And that goes back to that comment we had earlier about people exploring themselves, not necessarily in terms of gender, but obviously that's part of it. And like I say, the number of non-binary young adults I've seen turning up at the games has been fantastic, because they start off really nervous, not wanting to talk to anybody, and after a few sessions they feel they're part of the team, and that's brilliant.
Also beyond that, it can help with empathy by helping people sort of walking a mile in someone else's shoes.
Absolutely.
Which is something that's happened in my games a lot.
And that is one of the things that you will notice in more modern rule books. They tend to have a wider range of genders, sexualities, disabilities coming into rule books and making that part of the norm, which again I think is a really powerful thing to see.
One of the first games I ever saw do that was Blue Rose.
Yep.
Which has two editions. The first one, which is being sold down in Bring and Buy, by the way.
Are you selling it by any chance?
I will neither confirm nor deny. But both editions are really good, and it really opened my eyes to expanding beyond the boundaries of sort of cliched fantasy, which had bored me to the point where I was exploring in RPGs. I was doing all sorts of different genres by that point. And Blue Rose was the first one that made me go, oh, actually, you can do something interesting with fantasy games. So I got round circle with that. But certainly, helping people understand another person's point of view or seeing a different side is something that I think RPGs can really help.
And it goes back to that idea of if you see it, you can envisage it in yourself.
Yes.
And if you can't see it in media, it's very hard to see it yourself. So no, I think it's phenomenally powerful now. Anything else before we move on?
So I have 2 points. So when I play role-playing game or any storytelling game, it sort of allows me, like it's tied in exploring yourself. And for me, I always like drama, but I don't get a chance to go to drama club or.
I thought you were saying you like creating drama. That's the bard's job.
So it gives me, it let me explore more about acting, which is like, again, it's self-development of like the skills. But my other point is that talking about exploring different kind of people, is good. It's a good way of creating a profile of different kind of people, or like people might not know much about ADHD, like autism, and through playing the role-playing games, and people would know more about it, and so they're more likely to accept.
And it's something that I think is really powerful, but also possibly really dangerous is not the right word. I don't like the way that while some games are going explore this, they're also going don't explore this. This is the bad corner. You're not allowed to touch stuff in the bad corner. And I think sometimes peeking in the door to be going, ooh, you know what, I don't want to be going in there. I think that's a good learning experience as well. And a lot of games I feel nowadays are kind of going, no, don't touch these things. Obviously, it's entirely up to the players and the GM of what to do. But I still think it's important to explore some of the dark subjects in a way that you can look at them and go, oh, yeah, whatever. I'm yes or no about them. Okay, so didn't realise I didn't have any hobbies and was over-focusing on work, in turn messing up my work-life balance until I started playing role-playing games, and then you had no life balance whatsoever. Anybody been in that situation? Okay. Any thoughts on that?
I'm 40, I've spent 25 years of my life being a carer for disabled people. Two siblings who do not chip in at all. my life was essentially go to a shitty job and then look after somebody, and it completely tanked me. And I ended up doing it just out of necessity, trying to just get some time to myself. And then I basically just found that, yeah, you know what, there's a whole bunch of other people out there who's got issues, and there's a whole bunch of other people with shitty lives, and you can sit and talk about things, and like you said, sometimes your entire session will be throwing dice whilst actually sitting talking about how it's been. And it's the amount of lack of judgment, because there was a case of, yeah, you can start to go to the awards, or you can do whatever it was, we could all be crying in the corner, and it was just a case of the amount of acceptance, because it was just finding people who just were quite happy to listen and talk and share and zero judgment whatsoever, you know, and just give you a safe space just to do stuff. And then you start going along just for the sake of knowing that you could have a safe space to do things. And then it became that it wasn't actually about the rolling the dice. The dice or the game became like a plot device for actually just giving you space to actually sit and do something. And then they didn't turn out their topics of conversation and talking over. And sometimes you'd find that, you know, for whatever reason you move on from one group, or just try a different group, or you move house or whatever else, and try and set yourself up. And when you found that there was, like, you move from one to another and you find yourself like struggling to get reconnected to what it was in a new area, you could find that actually, my mental health is actually going to get a lot worse again, or people would even notice it. The first time that my manager at work, the first time you look like you're not having a good day. Come on, let's go and chat.
Did you get that in the back?
No.
No, okay, so it's about, sorry, I forget that I'm just loud. It's about that sense of community and support that you get from being a gamer. Going along to games, having people that you can talk to, just being able to vent with a bunch of people that aren't going to judge you, because potentially they're going through their own things, and the day that you need help is not an issue, because they know that in 6 months' time they might need the same help and support for you. Which made me think, interestingly enough, how many people get upset when the game's cancelled? I was going to put my hand up, I'm the DM, so it's just like, oh, thank God I get a day off. I wonder if we get upset and stressed because we miss out on the game session, or because we're missing out on the support and the connection and just being with that bunch of people, whether it's online or round the table. And there's no answer to that, but that's possibly something to think about. So you're...
I can half answer that. There are a couple of games.
Do you want to talk up a bit, please?
Sorry,
if possible.
A couple of role-playing games I do online.
Yeah.
One on a Monday and one on a Thursday. And sometimes, for whatever reason, the game is cancelled. The Monday one, in both cases, because they're friends, even if the game is cancelled, we're still connecting.
Yep.
I think if there was no game and no connection, I think I would miss it. I think I would get more upset or stressed. But the fact that if the game doesn't happen, we'd probably still go online and have a chat. Does alleviate that stress somewhat.
The bit that worries me is we're all kind of violently agreeing that if we threw all our games and dice out and just met up once a week to have a cup of tea and biscuits, we'd all feel good. I don't think that's the solution we want. So you had a point there that you wanted to make. Yeah.
So,
nice to be with you.
Thank you. And consequently, after my nervous breakdown, I retrained as a therapist and psychologist, and still doing it. But one of the things that happens when people miss a therapy session, if the therapist cancels, is they can experience it as a rejection. Not consciously, not that they know it. So sometimes they might then refuse to turn up next time themselves as a sort of punishment because I got it. It's quite an interesting thing that you
that back? No, okay.
Sorry, I
So,
might not always
no,
have
that's not a problem. Let's say I keep forgetting I'm so loud and gobby. The point was, from a therapeutic perspective, if as a therapist you cancel a session for a legitimate reason, the person you're speaking to can take that personally. Irrespective of the fact that you might have COVID or be on holiday or have a particular legitimate reason, they can struggle to accept that and use that as a vehicle for beating themselves up, or you don't like me, you don't respect me, I'm not valued, I'm not important. So again, our mental health can turn in on that, and please correct me if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, and that can cause friction, and that ties into if you have to cancel a group. Again, is there that conflict going on that people are then beating themselves up or blaming to somebody not want to play with me? Is that kind of summarising it? Excellent. Sorry.
So, in your professional opinion, would you put it down as well as breaking routine as well? Because obviously you're neurodiverse, routine is very, very good, and something's been cancelled, you're breaking that. I know with my son, he's neurodiverse, keeping that routine is very, very important. If I change that, it's a problem. I also run Roleplay Haven, chain role-playing clubs. I see cancellations all the time, and I've noticed particularly in the neurodiverse sort of side of things, there's cancellation, there's a lot more kickback, particularly on that. Maybe again, as this gentleman said, it's the rejection side, but I'd be curious to think, is it the routine though?
That's a really good point. When I was therapisting, one of the biggest things I had when dealing with neurodiverse clients was getting them to appreciate that life doesn't work on their schedule. So I remember one specific incident where there was a dad of a young kid, and he was trying to deal with his anger issues because every mealtime that kid was throwing food everywhere. And he's like, I want to get them fed, I want to get them cleaned, bathed, read in, and I can't because I've got 15 minutes of tidying this crap up every night. And I'm like, how long has this been going on for? And he went, oh, about 4 months. I'm like, why don't you build the 15 minutes tidy up time into your schedule? He's like, oh yeah. So one of my big things, and I'm neurodiverse, my kids are neurodiverse, spend a lot of time working with neuro, is to actually help neurodiverse people to build flexibility into their schedule. Don't fill your schedule up from the minute you wake up in the morning to the end of the day. Take something out and give yourself an hour of mucking about time or catch up, call it what you like. But if you build it into your schedule, when you have to use it, it doesn't become a problem because it's part of your schedule. Now I get that slightly different when people are cancelling games, but that's part of life, I guess, and it is a difficult thing to do. I wonder if there's do you do stuff online or is it all face to face?
So we have 8 branches. We have about 500 guys going through our branches a week. So we have quite a lot of obviously cancellations as well. People have life outside as things come up. So I see cancellations quite often.
So to my mind, if that was me, and feel free to chime in, I would have something on your website going, if your session is cancelled and it upsets you, that's fine.
Funny enough, you should say that. We do actually have a procedure on where people can message as soon as they click their game's not running, they'll get emailed so they know quickly as possible because it has been a thing. It greatly affects our organisation when something's cancelled. It doesn't look good on us, even though we're not cancelling it. It's a GM cancelling it, but we're the face.
But again, if your email, I would, if it was me, I would possibly have someone listen. We're really sorry. We appreciate you might not like this.
Sure.
But now that you've got these 2-3 hours free, why not work on the backstory of your character? Why not come up with another character? Why turn their stress into actually, all that stuff I've been meaning to do, I can now do now because I've got this 3 hours put aside for gaming, and rather than being upset and angry about it, I'm going to do gaming stuff. So tie the solution into something you want to see. Any thoughts on that?
Sorry, just the original thought about getting upset about if games are cancelled. I just wanted to say sometimes it's for some, especially if you're in a small place where there's not that many options. Or say I've got like a weekly group on Mondays, but if that gets cancelled, the reason I would get upset or someone else might get upset is because for us, that's the lifeline. If you have a really hard week, that's the only thing that you're looking forward to. And if that gets cancelled, that means that your torture is kind of extended for another week. And that can be really hard to, if we don't have things in place to...
I would say, if you game online, you can still say, games off folks, but we'll all meet up on time in the same channel, grab a brew and we'll have a chat. If you meet up face to face, it could be, I'm going to bring a board game along instead. Who wants to play? So again, and I totally get you.
I'm just saying that could be, that's a reason why people would be, because sometimes if life gets too much, that one session of playing could be the difference, the lifeline for people.
And again,
I mean there are solutions, but that is what makes it so important.
How powerful does that make gaming? Powerful, but also dangerous, because going back to that earlier point is, I would, and this is, do what I say, not do what I do kind of thing, because I know how upset I get if I miss games that I really want to play. But my thought would be, I shouldn't be in that situation. I wouldn't want anyone to be in a situation where the cancellation of a game was such a big crisis to them that they struggled as a result. So there's an element of, if you are in that environment, what can you do to better support yourself and support the other people in that environment? Because we don't want people who need the game, and I get we need games as lifelines, but we don't want to be in that situation. We want
not everyone has the
no, absolutely. And I appreciate I'm talking generalised, and there are going to be situations, but I would say that you probably don't want anyone to be in that situation where that game cancelling makes a difference to them. But we've all been there.
Unfortunately, it also makes me kind of, if I need to cancel,
it
makes me feel really bad for cancelling, or it will make me think twice before doing it, because, if I can't have to cancel, or if someone else cancels. First of all, if someone else cancels, always let them know it's okay, because life gets in the way, but at the same time, I think really carefully before doing that, because you know what an impact that could have on someone.
And that's a really difficult situation as well, because we know how important our game sessions are to us. And that adds a whole level of pressure to people that need to cancel, because they know how important it is to them as well. And I've had people coming along to games who, halfway through the game, go, listen, dude, just whatever it is, go and deal with it, because you're not here. And it's not healthy for you to be, but if I disappear off, then the game, no. If you disappear off, the world will keep turning, nobody will die. Go and deal with whatever you need to deal with. We'll just chat. I don't know any kids in here, we'll chat shit for a couple of hours and then go home. It's not important, it's just a game. And I get that we know it is really important, but actually, being able to say to people, you sorting stuff out is more important than you turning up for the game, is a really difficult balance to get when we know how important the game is for people. And I guess that's something that we all have to do. I find it difficult to make friends as I'm shy, but with games I can focus on the game, make connections in person, which can then become relationships. Unlike other hobbies, I find gaming draws in people with diverse backgrounds, values and beliefs, which is great. I thought you were going to say something down the back. You were just on a big stretch.
I'd say this is quite an important one for obviously a lot of people who again aren't really sure who they are, and trying to find people who, because as nice as games can be, as you say, there is danger in it, because if you're trying to find out who you are more about yourself with this sort of thing, I think a lot of people would probably be able to empathise with the fact that you might have had games, especially in RPGs, where you're trying to do that, and then it goes badly with the fact, and actually they don't know the weight of it because they just think it's your character, and you're trying something that you need to get out there, and so it is, and you can make really important, lasting relationships and things like that. But I just think as well, there is that danger to it, as I mentioned, because I think again there's moments where people really are putting themselves into it, and again because it's a game, other people might not recognise that, and if they get rejected or made to feel like that version is something to kind of be shunned away, like that's a bit disgusting or whatever, that can be very, very damaging.
We don't want our games appearing on RPG horror stories. So what can you do when there is character conflict in your game that is potential or has the potential to spill over into player friction?
Yeah.
What would you do?
That's where you need the safety tools.
Yeah.
Folk that they know. You really need like a session zero. Establish those in the first one. Obviously, I don't think people, if they are shy, they're not going to bring out session. Really shy, I don't like talking to people. They're not going to open up to everybody because that's a problem. So you have a session zero, and you explain your safety tools, but then also have like regular catch-ups through the game. So at the end of the session, how did that work for everybody? Or even at the next session, just anything that didn't work for anything work, so that you know how to kind of plan all these. So it's about kind of communication.
Absolutely, good communication. The ability to go, listen, mate. I hope you didn't take that personally. I really like you, but my character thinks your character's a dick and wants to kill. Okay, yeah. I thought you had a problem. No, that ability to communicate. But again, you don't get that in your first session. That sometimes takes a few sessions. So sometimes I've found, as a GM, you have to go, is everything all right? And almost be the go-between sometimes. Sorry.
Yeah. Just like I say, on the sort of basic comment on there, I run a gaming group in Wishaw at the Lancashire Action for Mental Health Cafe there. And one of the reasons I run that club is I have found one of the great things about tabletop gaming, it just happens. People talk. Because I think one of the reasons why people are shy is because there's something inside themselves they think is boring or not interesting, so they end up climbing up. When you're playing games here, role-playing game here, board game, you're talking about the game. Before you know it, you're conversing with other people. You're out of your shell in a moment. And talking about becoming lasting relationships, I mentioned it at gaming on Thursday. Those guys I've known for over 30 years. We've been friends since we were teenagers, and we all met through gaming. Yes, I am that old. It's not just done. It really is right there. But I very much believe in gaming as a way of helping form connections. And what you were saying earlier about, sometimes a game not happening and everyone just having a conversation. To me, gaming is a great way of helping introduce people to communication and connection that they can then bring into the rest of their interactions outside of it.
Let's face it, the earliest art form we had as human beings was storytelling. We told stories to each other. That's all gaming is. We're telling stories. So your point as well there.
Oh, yeah. The example that was given before. It's also about it's also about what's being modelled. From my yes, it's also about what's being modelled in the game. So it creates opportunities to explore scenarios that you might be struggling to explore. So you can lead your character in that role, and maybe something's going on for the other person. And when you were talking earlier, saying, gaming could replace therapy, if you found. But what I was thinking about was, what a great tool to do alongside therapy. Like what? Which would be the way I would use it.
Well, when I said replacing, it was more. There are situations where I can see one therapist running a gaming session, not just, but alongside absolutely.
Because I was thinking actually, like if the GM happens to be a therapist, well, you would have the opportunity to then see what's gone wrong in the container, as it were, like what is going on in that interaction. So yes, there's some quite powerful thoughts.
We used to meet up once a week and you'd for 3 hours, and you'd be lucky if half an hour was gaming. It was just, the rest of it was talking about the latest movies or whatever issues we'd had that week.
And that's, Online gaming lets me stay in contact with communities and friends I've moved on from in terms of my life changing. Gaming with them has remained a constant in my life, giving me stability and a safe space. I reckon, well, in fact, all my games at the moment are online. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions a week. All online games. I've never met these people. I've seen them on video, but I've never met them. But we still have that same connection. How many people here play online rather than face-to-face? Okay. I really struggled going back to running a face-to-face game in the library because I'm like, well, what do I do with a map? I'm used to having a virtual tabletop. They move a token around, everybody sees it. Now, how am I going to hide the map on the table? I go, I used to do that for years.
Can I turn that around the other direction?
Please do.
This weekend, my daughter's brought a boyfriend. He's not been into board games since he was a tiny little boy. Well, that's what I was going to say. He does online gaming, just your normal games, no D&D or anything. But he said to me this weekend that his social anxiety keeps him at home playing online games.
Yeah.
And now he's been here, and he's like, I would love to get out and play more board games and play with people more. And he says, I've never been to conventions because I don't want to go alone, and I just feel strange. And he's looked at it now and he's gone, wow, I want to join with you more and play board games.
Tell him that the 40 of us all think he's really brave for coming out here, and it's brilliant that he's found the fact that he enjoys games and wants to do it. My eldest,
just to the lady there whose daughter's boyfriend has found this so beneficial, speak to Dave. Dave maintains a list of all the clubs in Scotland. So it's bound to be one.
It's in the back of the program. Thanks for that word. Yeah. My eldest, who has never been a gamer, we tried loads of role playing. She doesn't like board games. Doesn't like role playing games. Never liked them. She's here today with my middle child. Middle child is a gamer as well. We did that Western demo. There's a new Kickstarter game that's being demoed out there. It's a Western game, and it was only 2 hours, and she's like, no, I'll play it for 2 hours. It's only 2 hours. Absolutely loved it. And then turned around and went, I think the problem is I don't like role-playing games because I don't understand the setting enough to know what I can and can't do. And it's taken her 15 years to recognise that. And we're like, well, there's a Fallout role-playing game. Do you fancy playing that? Oh, yeah. Because I understand the setting and that whole stress and anxiety about what can I do, what's everybody around me, just disappeared overnight. And we never even thought to ask the question. We just thought she didn't like role-playing games.
I was just going to say as well, I think with online games and such, I can say my experience with that is I've been kind of a bit anxious to go to the online scene because my sort of journey with gaming in general has been when I was a young kid. I was grew up in a pretty abusive household. Sorry to say, but like I actually used to play a lot of video games to the point where it became a very, very, really, honestly, it was a really bad addiction that I've managed to kick now for about 3 or 4 years. But it got really, really bad to where my work-life balance was terrible. No social. I'm quite an extrovert. Like social situations are important, but that never happened. And so for me, being able to, I think I was able to leave video games behind, which again, I know they're not a bad thing necessarily, but for me they were. And so getting into board games and realizing the social opportunities there and stuff, and knowing that I know it still, as we mentioned earlier, has dangers with being an addiction of its own. But for me, that was a big help from getting away from, like, again, the virtual world as such. So I really see that gaming online can help because, for example, my housemate has chronic fatigue, and she's also an introvert, and for her, like, that is so essential for people who are bed. But I've really understood people who are disabled a lot more through her journey. But with my own journey as well, it would make things difficult because I understand the kind of way my life was before and how dangerous it was being.
But that's sensible. You've gone, hey, there's a risky trigger for me, I'm going to avoid it. Seems like a sensible option to me. And this I think, I didn't realise it was this one coming up next. This is kind of where I think my eldest was. Didn't understand the rules, didn't understand the setting, didn't understand how people were expected to behave, and now she does. But I really like that bit at the bottom that we're saying, because there are so many games, I can look at my headspace, and I can choose a game that is going to work for where my headspace is now. Because I've done that. I've sat down in games and get 20 minutes into it and go, I'm really not in the right place for this game. But I'm now stuck here for the next 3.5 hours. So again, that ability to be able to take that step back, where's my headspace, what games are going to work for me now, and go, well, there's... thankfully, nobody's recording this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have a little collection of PDFs. And I think it's up to about 3,000 systems. And you sit there and go, there is a game for every situation, and every headspace, and every bunch of people, and it's out there. And that's why I'm a great believer in saying, listen, D&D's great for bringing new people into the hobby, but try other games, because sometimes that won't be the right game for you. And if you've got the option of playing something different that's going to work for you, better off to play a game that's going to work than it's that idea of, no D&D is better than bad D&D.
It's not a gaming topic, but Sarah and I are involved in a different community. Brit Nerf, it's essentially nursery for adults, okay? And we've got a particular player.
Just a bunch of friends going around playing games with your silly friends. Oh, hold on.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
We spent the full day yesterday in a back garden shooting each other with Nerf guns.
Great. But we have a particular player as part of our local group, and by their own admittance, their mental health can change all the time, okay? And they can go from really engaged to they'll just down sticks and walk off.
Yep.
Because that's where they need to be at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And once we all recognise that was the case, it's a case of, cool, this person's just disappeared. We know they're still in the area, but they're doing their own thing just now. They'll check in when they're ready, and we all just, it's a case of absolutely safe space for them to do the thing. Sometimes they'll maybe, and one of the other big things is, because the general sort of ethos is you nerf you, which is you play how you want to play. If you want to do full tactical no sim, that's fine. If you want to run around with whatever, fine. Don't care, as long as you're having fun. Rule zero, which is don't be a dick. Okay?
Which is pretty much works for gaming as well, isn't it?
It really is.
And the number of times because I'm fairly active on threads, and a number of people are like, oh, I want to start playing D&D, but it's too complicated, I don't know what I'm doing. And you say, listen, roll some dice and have fun. If you do that, you're doing it right. If you then want to look at the rules book and learn more, great. But if everybody's sitting around the table and having fun, you're doing it right. So anyway, in summary, I think we can all see that even though the academics are saying this is what's happening, we all know that it's good for our well-being, it's good for our development, and it's good for making connections. Are you happy with that? Yes. Absolutely. We've also identified from some of the stories, thank you very much, that we don't always use it in a healthy way. And to my mind, that is where we look out for each other. If you can see somebody, one of your gaming group, and they're not looking after themselves in a healthy way, that's where we kind of step up and look out for each other the same way we want them to look out for us. And that bit at the bottom as well, you know what, some days we're having good days, some days we're having bad days. And that's just the way it happens. If you are interested, now I don't know if that black bar is going to cause a problem for game therapy, but if you're interested, and I would say game therapy, because of all the projects they do, that is a really useful one you might want to get involved in, or at least have a look at what they've got.
Is it just like...
Is that slide on the one that you're sending out?
That is on the one I'm sending out.
Right,
Get it from that.
And speaking of sending out, where is the clipboard with the details? It's away at the back. So again, if you do want a copy of the slides, make sure your email address is on that clipboard before you go, and I'll get that sent out over the
You
next
said at the start that it was originally going to be a bit more academic.
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the academic version
No,
of the slides?
not at all. No, as in that.
Could you include them in the...
No, they weren't done.
Oh.
We didn't get to that stage where we were going to kind of do that. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to learn about the academics, just throw it on your favourite search engine, and there are lots of things out there. But they tend to be, like I say, very narrow. Small pool of people in a very restricted way. But again, all they're doing is identifying the stuff that we already know, which is good, because it then ties into what we said about you can get funding for it. It gives credibility. We're getting social prescribing, and we're able to do all of that, because if you said, I'd like some money because we all think gaming's good, people are going to know. But when you've got the evidence for it, it helps you build your business case.
I
just going to ask, to your knowledge, is there anyone who's doing like a course in kind of well-being in gaming?
There is a course in America that I'm aware of, sort of therapeutic GMing type course. It's online, that's the only one I'm aware of. However, Game Therapy UK are looking at coming up with a UK focused training for the GMs. All the GMs get trained at the moment. It's not an extensive training package, but that is developing as they get more evidence.
So just to add to your question, yes, there is an organisation doing magnificminds.org doing programs at the moment. Sorry, I didn't
No, please do.
So what's the name?
If you want to talk to me afterwards, I'm happy to do that. I'm actually doing it at the moment with my sister company called Magnific Minds. And we're actually doing programs dealing with neurodiversity already at the moment, using Dungeons and Dragons, and doing all the awesome work that these guys are doing as well, which we actually do work with UK Games Therapy.
And don't forget to go to the Bring and Buy and buy your new. That's really it for me, folks. I appreciate it's been a ridiculously hot day, hot a lot of chatting. So thank you very much. Have a great call.